gentlemen, I just want to remind you that we actually have an email list and we would love you to join us. If you want to sign up, go to www.thewizardandthepriestess.com and find your sign up button. Join us today. Welcome to The Wizard and the Priestess. We are moving forward into the Aquarian age, further and further, day by day, week by week. Here we are. Can you feel it? Are you aligned yet? Are you trusting?
Yeah.
Matt sure is. Why did you make that weird?
That weird, yeah.
50-50, man. Like, come on. Meet me. So we were talking last week about this idea of separation anxiety, and then understanding the whole. So we both have our stuff to do, the ins and outs of ourselves, and then we bring that into relating, whether that's as a parent, whether as a child, as a partner, as a friend. Now we want to talk about what happens once we allow that transition.
So it's really... Well, another word for transition is death. Another word for death is transition, because energy can't die, it can only be transformed. So that energy gets transformed into something. So it's really talking about life after death. And we all go through a death experience. I'm not necessarily talking about a physical death of a human body, but the death of
Which actually will happen though.
It will, yep. Death of a relationship. It can be death of a job. It can be any kind of transition by energetic standards is a death.
Death of an age, right? Yeah. Children are growing, adults are growing.
Yeah, so from
more grey hair.
From a child to a adolescent to an adult, it's all, you die to your child, you become teenager, you die to the teenager, become the adult, and that's where the transitions are. Now, we don't really talk about them in our culture because we love to define everything. And if we define everything as death, then it'll turn into a really morbid subject. Mm-hmm. But then, as I said last week, if there's no death, we can't have life, because they are complementary opposites to each other.
No,
they're not. I'll say that again. Without death, we can't have rebirth. And life is just the stuff that happens between those 2 points. Two halves of the circle, aren't they?
That's it in life. Maybe not the middle.
So
Loud Sue.
So we can't be born unless something dies.
Yeah. That's pretty much it. Okay,
yep.
Thank you for listening. Enjoy your week.
But it's allowing that transition is the hard bit, because not everyone, most people are afraid of death, be it change or a physical death, but then there's the trap, getting caught in the fear of the idea of a death.
Yeah, but that's just the story of the death instead of actually accepting of it.
Yeah.
So I want to talk more about we've now accepted it, or maybe someone else ripped the Band-Aid off for us. There wasn't, actually recently was speaking, and I feel this viscerally about this idea of death and rebirth and this feeling of like the lull in the moment after death. So from a physical standpoint, it's really easy. When someone leaves the physical body, that happens like flick of a switch. And so all of the feelings of grief and the lull that comes in that moment, it's like this, everything is opening up, the clarity. And then obviously you've got the processes of grief that we have spoken about previously and all the different...
Which is the separation.
Right. Yeah. So the acceptance of the separation. And then how do we move on? How do we live? But in that moment of the lull, I know for me personally, when I've had an experience of death around me, it's a sensation that is just empty. And there is space for whatever I want to put in there now.
Yeah, so it's the paradox of it's full of emptiness.
Yeah. And then you can either allow light in or fill it with dark.
Yeah.
And just a heads up for this, a friend of mine just was calling me the other day, and her daughter's partner's brother has passed away. And in the moment of that they weren't expecting it. He's only 28. He had a heart attack, or they're assuming heart attack. They actually, I don't know to what extent the family did an autopsy. The family now can't accept the death. It's now been 6 weeks. His body is still on top of the earth, and they haven't done anything with it because there's a complete lack of acceptance in that transformation. Yeah. And there's a lot of darkness that's filtering in. And she's sort of sitting with her daughter who's experiencing her partner's grief in the loss of his brother, and they're trying to hold it together in a way. And my friend shared for me, she's like, the families as a whole have just gone into this darkness. They have been filled with dark and they can't actually see any. And that's the process of grief in that. Now, I guess that's the depth that is, they can't actually find acceptance in the death of the physical body.
Yeah.
And then there's these other examples of women that I have never had the pleasure of meeting, but they have lost babies either at birth or early after, or even through pregnancy, where they've lost a baby, and the grief that for some, I guess it's, if it's at birth or after birth, you watch the last breath, so the life is. But then for someone who is carrying a baby, when that pregnancy ends, may not be like that.
Yeah.
So then there's the birth of that child, and then the feelings of that separation, and then moving through those layers. But there is a lady that I've been watching her and story unfold, and seeing her really share and talk to in this moment where she has lost her children, and she's sharing the potency that she will not let this experience take her to darkness. While she obviously feels human emotion moving through her a lot, and the grief and how much she would love her children to be here, and all of those things, they are very alive and within her. But that moment of that, I am assuming that lull, that like emptiness, that has an opportunity to be filled with whatever you want to fill it with now. It's almost like the veil has been lifted. There's so much more clarity in living this human body, living with this human experience. I'd like you to talk to that.
Well, it's a funny thing, because before we have incarnated, the veil hasn't been put down yet. So we are aware that we are all that is. We forget that being human and being one of the things we take on with being human is accepting that illusion of separation. And the more we get stuck in that illusion, and I guess we get stuck more in that mental mind game of the intellectual self, rather than accepting like the energetics surrounding it. The more we get stuck in that, then the more we open ourselves to the grief, because we are stuck in that illusion of separation. But it's when the death of the physical body, that's when the veil is lifted. So you can even argue that we become more awake when we die, because our consciousness just completely expands.
Yeah.
We're not in that narrow width of humanism. Humanness, good word. So also comes back to our preconception of what happens when we die as well.
I don't want to go there just now. But what I'd like you to talk to is the idea of things that the simplicity of life and death, death and rebirth aspects. So we're just talking now about actual death of a body. Or did you want to touch on, I think you've shared with me once before that you had a death experience. Do you want to touch on that?
Sure.
Please, go right ahead.
So I've technically clinically died once.
Just one time?
For 44 seconds, apparently. where everything stopped.
Right.
And it,
How old were you?
30, early 30s.
What did you do?
I was on a journey
Right.
with a licensed.
Yeah, you're just
It
on
was
a
a-
journey.
yep.
It's okay.
And
You're on a wizard's
I
journey.
asked for the death experience.
Oh, fucking idiot. Right.
Thank you for your support.
Well,
And
I mean...
no, because I wanted to know what Mum went through.
Uh-huh.
It was a mum thing. So
You worked through that now? He's
yeah,
getting...
good. We're good.
Okay.
And
So you asked for that. You went on the journey. You then...
it was the lightest experience I've ever experienced. I can't even, words don't. If I try to explain it with words, I'd feel like I'd be disservicing the sensation and the experience. Imagine feeling as light as you've ever felt. Times it by 1,000.
I just come back to that conversation we had about a month ago about that sensation of like going back into the soup
Yeah.
and that feeling of complete
Also, then that
eternity.
kind of what brings it, right? So being in that voidy
The
space of not being in a body, like my soul was not in a body, or my body wasn't in a soul, however you want to compute that.
Yeah.
Being in that space between
Oh, the liminal
that
space.
and that. And I remember looking to my left in my light body and I saw all these hands reach out. And from that, I got the impression they're all the people that are going to need my help at some level. Either I can go back now and do that, or I'm going to reincarnate it and do it anyway. That's just the sole impression I got.
Yeah.
Then I went, I guess,
Look to your right.
looked to my right and seeing, the cliche, all your friends and family and all that kind of stuff. But it wasn't,
Sorry, are you there? Can I take this?
you know,
All I saw was all your friends and family in a soup, like
a weird,
splashing.
fucked up alphabet soup.
We're in the soup.
Yeah.
Come get in the soup.
Big pool party.
It's green.
But
Green
it-
soup.
But
Spinach.
so we get told that, say, we meet up with all our ancestors again.
Yeah.
It wasn't that. It
Oh,
was
there's no soup.
well, no, hear me out. It was if I go there, I become that.
Yeah, right.
It's not, I'm going to,
They're not the faces of them there. It's just a soup.
if I go there, I am that love.
Yeah.
Picture going into a room,
Yeah.
people you haven't seen forever.
Yeah.
That elated feeling you get.
Yeah.
It's like you becoming that.
Yeah.
There's no separation.
Yeah.
It's just you are that.
Whilst you're in that liminal space, I imagine that's what you felt too. So you felt all of that elation, right-sided elation, and then
Yeah.
you saw the arms.
Apparently.
And then
I was in a place where time wasn't a thing.
Right, yeah, but someone obviously
It
told
could have
you
been a
44
year.
seconds.
I wouldn't have known. Yeah, exactly.
My point is, okay, yeah, more?
And then I decided the former. I decided to come back. But I remember coming back with the, oh, is that what happens? Like, it's, okay, cool. And I grew up Catholic or Christian or whatever it was, and thinking, if you think that we'll say this, you're going to go to hell and whatever. And it's like, that's not remotely even.
How it felt for you.
No, not even close. And that's what it,
So then you're like, fuck it,
well, it
let's
really,
get high.
It brought a clarity that it's really hard to explain. But for example, when I think of Mum, what she would have went through, I now know what she went through.
Okay.
Like, I can viscerally feel what she went through. My nan, all these people that have now gone into, let's say, time space.
Yeah.
It is, the only illusion is here.
Yeah.
Like, you go, I can think of Mum, and I know she might as well just be around the corner.
Yeah.
So
We're good.
the illusion is here,
Yeah.
not there.
Nah.
I feel like you need to talk. You need to say something.
Drop. No, it's just magic. I think I'm just stuck in that feeling. I'm just like feeling that sensation. And I think that when we, maybe it is through the sensation of these big emotions like grief, for example, that there's space being created to transport us to that liminal sensation of elation that allows us to really hone in on the bigger picture of the illusion. And that is why when we have done a little bit of self-work, a little bit of opening into the spiritual realms of what is, that we can cultivate that here and now.
Anytime.
Instead of sitting, instead of it being like, you know, on the deathbed, I said this, like, you know, I actually quite like those things when you speak. I love speaking to my grandparents about things like that. And I have, you know, 2 sets of grandparents. One grandparent is passed, and then I have my father's parents are still alive and my mum's still alive. And when I speak with my mum's mum, she's like the same, had very similar experience. She's like, death looks easy. She said to me when I thought she was going to pass earlier this year, and she said to me that it was just so peaceful. It's just so simple, so easeful. She's like, I could see it now. Now I'm not afraid. Now I know that there's nothing to be afraid of in that. But she's like, I don't want to go yet because I want to be here now. And then whereas my father's parents, hey grandma, I can sense that they are fearful. But they're also, it's sort of very, it's a weird feeling because they're fearful of that transformation because they want to be here now because there's so much good for them. They've got great grandchildren.
They're still enjoying themselves.
There's so much joy here still. But their bodies are breaking down. They're now, you know, they're like, our lives are just doctor's appointments. And give them, like, say, it must have been about 10 years ago when they were in their early 80s or 80s.
How old are they now?
90s.
90s.
That we would talk about how, like, I was, you know, just come out with questions. And I think at that point it felt okay to ask these questions. Now it feels a little bit less okay because if I'm going to ask them, how do you want to be, you know, how do you want to be ritualized, or what is it called? How do you want to be revered after death? What do you want to do? What do you want to happen? When I asked those questions in their 80s, they were like, we just want to go to sleep one night together and both not wake up. Like that. Then there's only the anguish of the people. They don't have to deal with not having each other. And I think it will happen like that at time, when the time comes. Or like most love stories, one passes and then not so soon after the other passes, which I feel is so, like, just such a beautiful thing to happen if it's meant to be that way.
I hope that's their journey.
Yes. And my point is that there's these 2 different sides, right? There's one person sitting in the like, oh, wow, okay, I can go there now, but I'm happy to be here. And the other journey is, I mean, I'm sure there's moments that that's not the case, but then there's the journey of my body's breaking down. My life is just doctor's appointments. My life is what is it come to? And then, you know, I don't want to go over there with snotty children because I'm like, oh, I don't want you to get a cold. So, you know, it's sort of like, okay, whether you believe in germ or terrain theory, either way, but like I just don't want to be the thing that creates any sort of fuzz on that. But my point is that...
Sorry, finish your point.
Well, what I was going to go to is just that liminal space when you've experienced grief, opening up to that emptiness. And that doesn't have to be in the full body way. It doesn't have to be someone actually dying. It's just the death of something. And in the death of something... there is this, what I see is that it's like, it's an opportunity of emptiness, an opportunity of spaciousness that you can fill. And can you talk to that, or do you want to talk to someone?
Well, I was just going to say, it's like the silence after the song, that just immediate nothingness. And as you're saying, it can be translated into relationships with a person, a place, a thing. Any change is arguably a death. And in that death process, it can hurt. Absolutely. Regardless of how big or small it perceptively is. I don't think there's a quote unquote technique that you can use that's going to do it and fix it or help it or whatever. But if we can be brave enough to sit with it, and as I said last time, allow it to move through you, not from you, then yeah, you might have a scar. And if it's, let's say if it's a breakup with a relationship, then for the next person, you're automatically more attractive, more interesting to that person because of that scar. And that's how the magnetic effect can work.
Is that like the first husband, second husband, first marriage, second marriage kind of?
Well, it can be, yeah. But it's moving and allowing that experience to move through us.
Yeah.
And not get caught in the, oh, this was my forever person place thing and now it's not. So I don't know what to do with myself because maybe I lost my identity in that. And now that's gone, so I don't know who I am anymore. But then there's a huge potential in that. Oh, I can be whoever I want now.
Yeah.
That's the ultimate freedom.
Yeah.
But I think we're partially wired to focus on the grief and just stay there. And
yeah. Because everything's so hard. Like, I know we know that life is not always easy, but I would say that life can be very easeful if you choose it to be.
Yeah.
And we get a choice every time when we're met with our lions and tigers and bears, or we're met with actual physical life lions and tigers and bears. What do you mean?
You're going to be like what I thought you were going to say.
Yeah, there is. Like, you know, when we're met with those moments, we get to choose. And I think that's, something really powerful and potent in making a good choice and being in a really good, clear position to make that choice and
I think even
to choose light.
Even if it is the choice and we can only make the decision based on what we've already got, and it might be, let's say, the wrong choice, quote unquote, then not beating ourselves up about that.
Yeah, for sure.
Say, well, I didn't know what I know now, so I'm going to let myself off the hook and I'm wiser for it now.
Yeah.
And I had to go through that catalyst of change. We all go through a catalyst of change.
Yeah.
Be it pre-incarnative choices or whatever your ideology is, yeah. And unfortunately, a lot of those catalysts are quite painful in this experience. We all go through a catalyst. That catalyst requires us to change.
Yes.
For what we think better or worse. We perceive often for the worse. Unfortunately,
if we have an opportunity to perceive, right? That's what I was going to say. Whether we want a slow death or a fast death, no matter what it is, we either have a choice to perceive this going to be hard, or we have to, in the moment, choose, is it going to be hard?
Because a lot of the time we've already set it up so it's going to be hard, regardless if it's actually hard or not.
Yeah.
So we've talked ourselves into it. That's the story we tell ourselves.
Yeah.
And therefore we exacerbate any pain that we perceive. And that would trigger the victim archetype, saboteur, whatever, the child. And from there it just spirals for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But it is the opportunity for rebirth every time. And the incarnation of it, you are a different, more evolved mind, body, spirit complex of it. And that's what I know in Hinduism, the chakra systems, when you die to your animal self, the lower centers, and start living from the heart, you're reborn into a spiritual human and a new experience. And that's what reincarnation is all about. So it's happening all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty wild. I just wanted to touch on that idea that we have an opportunity in every time, in every death, we have an opportunity to sit in that emptiness and fill it with light. So I would be highly recommending that we focus on filling that with light, and a certain practice that I've started to do that really helps with that is a breath where you draw in through the inhale, you draw up through the chakra. So you start at the base and you gently activate everything. So you activate...
One by
Yeah, well, it is one by one. So you're activating the base through the center, through the up, and then you're allowing the heart to expand. This is how I envision it. Throat to expand, through expansion to above. And once it gets to above, there's all light. So it's like the inhale takes everything up, and you allow yourself to bring the light to the top, and you hold it at the top, and then you release it all the way. And instead of releasing it back through down the center, what I tend to do is imagine that light has expanded over the whole. It's through and over the whole. And it is based on Joe Dispenza, but he talks about that a lot in his practice. But if you are in a moment where you get to choose where you find yourself in the emptiness, and you find yourself sort of stuck in those lower chakras, you're stuck in that like archetypal victim, saboteur, what was the other one? Child, any of those spaces, and then you can allow yourself to move through. And maybe you're at a precipice as well. Maybe you're at the precipice of something dying. And when you're at that precipice, this is also a really powerful tool and technique, because guess what? It's going to shift. It's going to create the shift that you didn't know that you needed or wanted. And I can personally attest for this as something that really powerfully will shift the things that need to be shifted. And likely you're not going to be making the decisions on that.
No, not consciously.
So just to end, we might do this breath. So ready. When you're ready, just sitting or standing where you are, just take a moment to find your breath again, connecting to the breath. Allow the breath to move in and out through the nostrils as you breathe. Feel yourself being more elongated. So you're actually creating some space through every chakra. So you find yourself lengthening as if there's a string pulling from the top of your head. And as you inhale through your nose, feel the breath coming up from the base. So imagining the breath is drawing from the lower chakra through the middle, higher and higher. As it reaches the heart, keep breathing in. Feel that expansion as it reaches the throat and the pineal into above the head, feeling this full expansion as you breathe all the way in. Now hold it at the top. Hold it at the top. Keep it held there. Just a moment longer, hold it, and now let it go when you're ready, and fully let it go, allowing all of that light to wash over your whole being, fully releasing all the way out, and then breathing it in again, breathing it in from the base, gently activating each center, feeling you turning on the center point in your abdomen, feeling your heart now expand, activating through the center and the muscles of the heart and the chest, activating through the neck just slightly, feeling that light expanding above your head, holding it at the top, seeing more expansion, being in that moment of liminal space, allowing yourself to be open there. Feel it. Feel that precipice. And gently let it go, feeling the light washing all the way over you as you release. And again, breathing in, activating from the base, moving through the middle, all the way up. Everything starts to turn on gently through to the heart. You feel the open expansion of the heart. Feel those upper chakras opening more fully. You see more illumination, more light. You're holding at the top. You're seeing the mountain. You're seeing the clearing, the void, the spaciousness there. You're feeling it as you hold, and then you release. And you let it all the way out. And you allow your breath to return. And you allow your body to feel renewed. Feeling the lower centers, vibration vibrating towards the heart and above, and allowing that openness and expansion to hold you in the light. And now go in peace. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Namaste.
You've been listening to The Wizard and the Priestess. Thanks for stopping by. Stay connected and be open.